it's important. You mentioned Zaganin, and I set aside here, for example, and Pedro can talk about this. So very well, right? Yes. When we start talking here about the national instrument, about how much it has changed, we will compare it with instruments from abroad. I also strongly believe in the expertise of the luthier professionals we have here in Brazil today by applying what they know. In terms of labor, construction, and everything, it has helped us achieve this significant improvement to machinists in the instruments we are offering to the market today. But I think it hasn't always been this way. People haven't always thought like this. Do you believe that, for example, today, with the craft of lutherie being more widespread, with more discussions about it, in podcasts, the profession of the luthier is more widely spread, the brands are better publicized, having a good professional by their side to be able to perform quality control on the instruments, because when we interviewed Zaganin, he set a quality standard for Tajima's instruments that we hadn't seen before, and I think that's what helped differentiate what was produced before compared to what is being produced now.
The difference is very big. It's a huge difference. When Marcio came in and things started evolving, you noticed that indeed the instrument improved a lot in many aspects. And if there's one thing, when I talked about the quality parameters of an instrument, the parameter that most burdens the instrument is the quality control.
Yes, totally.
I've seen a video of Paul Radesmith taking that PRS of his, which was made in his factory, that might have been a bit off, with some small defect that I couldn't see what it was, but he saw it, and running it through the band saw with that beautiful, wonderful top and everything.
Wow.
Why? Quality control. This is going out with my brand's name on it. So, it has to be a product within the quality standard that I desire. So this one won't do. End of story. It's over.
At the Gibson factory, I saw this. At each stage, there was a return cart. All the factory workers were trained to return the product when it's made. For example, the guy is going to paint there. This fret here isn't right. No. This gluing isn't right. There was a rack with guitars to return. And the competition, answering your question, competition is everything. Yes, I think so too. Because if Tajima is doing well with Zaganin, the guy, he will look for a Zaganin for himself too. And today we have, now let's talk about guitars below 4,000 reis. I think the great success in Brazil is the competition. You have 7 brands there that will fight for the consumer's money. Tajima, Strindberg, Waldman. All of these I work with Jens. Except for these 5, I work with PHX, which I don't work with, and Mike, which I don't work with. I don't work with them by choice. They are great brands. From what I hear, I've never had these last 2 brands in my hands, but everyone speaks very highly of them. So, 7 guys, make no mistake, they will fight. We will fight for your money.
This slice of the market, because the market is divided into slices, has the entry-level instrument. There's the slightly better one. The intermediate, the high-end, and the, let's say, state-of-the-art.
It's that, let's say, up to 2,000, from 2 to 5, from 5 to 10, from 10 to 15, 15 and above. I would guess more. There's the 30 and above, which are things that very few can buy, let's say 0.1% of the population.
They can buy.
An R8 is costing 120,000 reais in Brazil, isn't it? R9? It's around there. I saw the one from, I think it's from Joe Bonamassa.
Oh, really? That's it. There's something that a lot of people talk about, right? An instrument like this, is it worth it or not? Uh-huh.
It was made by Tom Marcio. The guy is going to have a guitar.
So what? But that's the point. Who am I? Who are you? Who are you to say if this is worth 10,000 reais or not? We are nobody. We just think. The one who will say if this is worth 10,000 reais or not is the market. If you put this up for sale for 10,000 reais and it sells, it's because it's worth it. End of story.
There's something interesting, which is the following. When I was a product specialist. It is. mass-produced instruments there on the line. Then people would sometimes ask, why is this model here so much more expensive than this other one? Here, let's take a Fender, for example. The American Special at the time was the entry level of the American line compared to a Fender Deluxe, which had a few more features. And I would tell people the following, depending when it comes to a mass-produced instrument, I believe that after a certain price, you're paying for a cosmetic aspect, which is the beautiful part of the instrument that won't affect, for example, playability. It won't affect, for example, the tone of the instrument. Sometimes you'll get a guitar that has a top, of quilted maple. It won't change the sound of your guitar compared to the other one. You have the American Special, which is made of alder. Both will have an alder body, but one has a top quilted maple, flamed maple. Sometimes you'll get there. I don't know, man. The American Special has a vintage bridge, right? With 6 screws, and you go to a Deluxe, and it has the one with 2 pivots.
Let's be more specific. This one, which has the bridge with 6 screws, what else does it have, and what does the other one have that this one doesn't? And how much more does this one cost than that one? So that's where it comes in.
I think the comparison has some things that will change in pickups.
Sometimes it's not about how much one costs compared to the other.
At the time, we sold the Special for $9,000, and the Deluxe easily reached $15,000. I'm talking about 10 years ago. Even the Deluxe is still... The problem is that above the Deluxe, it's just aesthetics. But it's not just aesthetics. No, it's not just aesthetics. There's something that Pedro mentioned that adds value. Aesthetics are extremely important. I know it's important, but I don't think it's what justifies, for example, sometimes a 10,000 raise difference for an American Special. Let's put it this way, maybe an American Standard, which already had the 2-pivot bridge for a Deluxe. That difference was, it came with a case, it also came with cheese.
Look, one costs twice as much as the other. When you mentioned
American Special, it...
$850 and $700.
Yeah, less.
So do you think this one has perhaps approximately $850 more in parts?
In the case of this guitar, I think it does. Not in parts. I think it delivered. Because the American Special, it was a limited edition just until the guys survived the 2008 crisis. As soon as they could, take it out of... They made a guitar with an $800 cover. The same thing is with the Tribute. The Tribute for studio were very similar guitars.
Yes. You can be sure that in a factory of this size, like Fender, where you have an instrument that costs, let's say, $850, and you have an instrument that costs $1,700, and you're going to compare the price difference of this bridge to that one, of this tuning peg, to that one, blah, blah, it's not going to be $850. It will be much less. It won't. Do you know what the difference will be? The quality control. The quality control of this series, which costs more, is much more rigorous than the other one.
It needs to be.
Maybe it's the time the wood was kept secure. And the quality control, that's material selection. But quality control is part of it too. Quality control is what costs the most in this. And the quality control of the Superior series, why do the Fender Custom Shop, the ones with that little V, why do they cost so much more?
Because they are made by a master builder. Quality control.
It's that guy. Once I saw on a podcast from here, I've seen many, and I mixed them all up in my head. The guy who made, I forgot his name now, who made the guitars. Wow. I cut the guitar neck, the blank, yes.
Mozan.
And I leave it there to rest. Then 2 days later, I come to look at it again.
No, then it wasn't Mozan. It wasn't Mosen.
I remember.
That's really cool.
Exactly, it is. But here's the thing. It's the control. It's the ultimate in quality control. You're going to make a guitar in 2, 3, 4 months. How much will an instrument like this cost if you do the math? Unless he does it as a hobby or to sell because he enjoys doing it and such. For him to make a living making an instrument like this, such an instrument has to cost, I don't know, 50,000 reais.
And those 50,000 reais instruments you mentioned, they're worth what the market pays. But it's not our market that determines it. It's the American, European, Japanese, and now also the Chinese market. They put the guitar there, $10,000. If it's sold well in the United States, then they don't care about the third world. Oh, there it will cost 100,000. I know, of numbers that we have represented. Latin America represented 1.7% of the sales of one of these big factories. 1.7% for the entire Latin America. They don't develop products. They don't think about anything.
Do you want an example of this?
Whereas the national brands only think about us. This is a point I want to bring up later.
And the quality control and after-sales service must be much better because it's right there.
It's right there. Once I was at the store, I had the furniture there. Before the store started online, a piece of furniture fell. 6 basses fell. Wow, 6 pieces. And I sent them. Then I called Vignoli from Tajima. Marcio, this happened. Send everything to me and I'll paint it. Everything. Everything for you. He didn't charge me anything. Because I have a factory here. That's what you're talking about. The retailer is in the league to get it done. I'm desperate here. Send it to me. It would already be something that if you, for example, here in Brazil, if you buy a guitar from a 100% Chinese brand from abroad, to manage this process would be very difficult, very difficult, very difficult.
This is important because it's the feedback and it's how the manufacturer treats their partner on whom they depend, and also the fact that this partner, which is you and the manufacturer, they were able to do this for you because it was included in their overall costs, because they are a large manufacturer. Yes. So, you combined all the best there. You were left.
The affection I have for Tajima is an affection I have for Tajima.
You will never forget that.
But it's a codependent relationship between the brand and the retailer, right, man? One needs the other to make things happen. So really...
Which is something that became very difficult for us small high-end instrument manufacturers. To work with logistics.
Is it difficult for you to give up logistics?
Wow, because that's how we used to work. Because how did we operate? We sold to the store.
Okay.
Right? And we had a list price. If someone wanted, we didn't sell to stores all over Brazil because we produced very little. We sold to Espírito Santo, which was where we were, here to Rio de Janeiro. We have sold to Bahia and have been in Minas Gerais. And also Santa Catarina, one thing or another. But, for example, we never entered São Paulo. And what happens? We had a list price, and if someone calls wanting, look, I want to buy, look at such and such store, they have it ready for delivery, you can buy it there. Why? Because you support your partner, you depend on them, they depend on you. So you don't pull the rug out from under your partner. So working with the retailer is like that. Understood? It's just that you don't invest in certain things that the retailer invests in for you. When we had to switch to direct-to-consumer sales, everything changes completely. Everything changes. And now, with the modern world, social media, Instagram, it's a different kind of investment. It's something...
You invest much more in traffic, right?
Exactly.
You have to solve the problem. The amount of product we have with the carrier, right? You're not going to leave your customer waiting 2 hours for the carrier. No, that's crazy. One of my employees spends an hour every day just waiting to be attended to.
For example, just that. And it's different. And you see, the manufacturers, the bigger ones here, the manufacturers of not bigger instruments, the manufacturers of more expensive instruments, they practically work with direct-to-consumer sales, even if it's in series, because there are those who do custom shop and such, because it's difficult. Because imagine selling an instrument that will cost, I don't know, an instrument that we sell to the consumer today for 14,000 reais. If I were to sell this, because we don't have the retailer's price. If I cut the retailer's margin, I don't have a margin to sell. You understand? So, look at this. So there was an adaptation in the market with this whole thing of the retailer having to increase the markup.
But it's a question I'm going to ask, not a statement. Does this create a barrier for you? Up to here I can grow. Beyond this I couldn't.
It depends.
What I mean is becoming a Tajima, becoming a Red Smith.
To become a Tajima, you can't just sell directly to the consumer, nor can Paul Red Smith. For example, we end up aspiring to become a Jens Ritter, who is the guy that sells the basses. PJ has his basses. These are the instruments that cost, I don't know. And it's only direct to consumer, which cost 6,000 to 8,000 euros.
And you wait 2 years for it to be ready.
No. He makes about 50 instruments a year.
But I would really, really, really like to have 5 national factories that wanted that thing. There would be competition, right? But for that, I would need support. For what? For your 12,000 to become 7 so you can sell to the store, for the store to sell for 12?
I remember the hassle it was because I was the one who did that part. When we had the factory there, dealing not with the employees, but with the bureaucracy of the employees. You have this, then you have... I remember I would go once, because you see, we are in the late 90s, right? I was the one who went once a month to the bank at Caramba, Economical, to collect the bacuizado.
Today it's easier, much easier.
The invoice was that note that had a big block with Series B character it is. The invoice had a sheet for each curve.
I remember that carbon paper you would write, mark everything that was tense with the credit card.
We would pass it like this, so this of having several Tajimas. I'm sure if you arrive, because Marcio doesn't do this anymore, someone else does, but I have Marcio. There at Inishnin, he had to take care of a lot of things. It's being the entrepreneur, it's taking care of the employees, it's handling the bureaucratic part with the accountant.
It's versatile, right? It's just being there doing the first.
All of this is a lot of work, especially here in Brazil.
I understand within my possibilities about the dollar. I understand HR, I understand the fiscal part, I know CMS well, I've done several things without an accountant. Everything, man. Labor law, everything. But it's because we end up, it's a digital influencer who has to show up there every day. Hey, family, 3 weeks with a really bad appendicitis. And every day she says family, I hit here.